welcome to our presentation for our Randstad employer branding research. Now, I think obviously, I think you could probably agree that employer branding is probably more important now more than ever, obviously, with our global pandemic that's obviously happening throughout the world. We absolutely acknowledge that it's actually paralysed a lot of local economies, labour markets, and as a result, companies are finding themselves with unprecedented challenges as well, and attracting talent to obviously organisations. It's one of those things where a lot of organisations have gone and had to rethink about how to pandemic-proof themselves moving forward too. So this research, it's actually research that we conduct every year. It's one of a kind. So what actually it is, it's obviously it's research based around perceptions of the general audience over, I guess, 20 years of insight. We have an independent survey. It's completed by Kantar. It's 185,000 respondents in 33 markets worldwide. It's a reflection of the employee attractiveness of the market's 150 largest employers, known by the 10% of the population. Oops, sorry, I was down there. And also provides insight to help employers shape their employer brand. So, as I said, something we do every single year. And this year in particular is quite interesting because the research is actually conducted in January from 3rd to 30. So, which is great. But then you think what happened in March? Oh, that's right, global pandemic launched and everything else. So this year, which makes it more relevant, we've actually conducted a pulse survey in May 2020, where we basically surveyed 700 people in Australia, obviously as well, to see their impact on COVID and see if the results from this research were still relevant and what trends had changed, if any, as well, and to obviously gauge what some employees are doing in the market from as a result of COVID. So I guess why employee branding? The research. It is Australia. So it's definitely global, but what the research today is about is just about Australia. So in Australia itself, we've actually surveyed 9,600 people, roughly. So it's almost 10,000 people, and the top 150 companies in Australia as well. So basically here, why employee branding matters. So I'm not going to go through all the infographics here, but just a few that I wanted to point out to you, obviously. So I guess the first one on the top left, like employee branding matters because companies are overpaying salaries by 10% if they do not have a strong employer brand. It's pretty simple. They have to pay more to attract a better talent if they don't have that strong brand, which leads into the next one along the side. So 50% of candidates say they wouldn't even work for a company with a bad reputation, even with a pay increase. So it goes to the hand. It's quite interesting, obviously, two key stats there to sort of reflect on. And I guess then you look down the bottom right-hand side, second one in from the right, companies with a strong employer brand have a 1 to 2 times faster time to hire. They don't have to sell the job. They don't have to sell the company. They don't have to sell the role. The reputation precedes itself. They've got a great brand, great awareness, great attractiveness, and it's a very quick turnaround, obviously, in terms of hiring as well. But does anyone have any comments about any other stats they want to talk about before I move on there at all? There's a lot of stats throughout here. Obviously, results from surveys. Okay, so but any questions about that at all? Okay. All right. So as we said, 33 markets surveyed, covering more than 75% of the global economy. On the left-hand side is all the countries we've actually surveyed, and as on the right-hand side there, you can see, I guess, a few of the examples there. So, of course, worldwide respondents, as I mentioned before. The sample of work was conducted from ages 18 to 64, was representative of gender. Of course, there's an overrepresentation of 25 to 44s, as that's the key age group of the workforce today. It's also comprised of students, employed and unemployed workforce. So nearly 10,000 respondents. Obviously, it was online interviews conducted between 3rd and 30th of January, and there's 16-minute interviews. So it's not a quick tick and flick. It's a bit more detailed, obviously, as well, to get the research. So today, guys, I just wanted to let you know this is just the highlights, and I will be sending you the more detailed report and a detailed pulse survey as well after this. So please let me know if you want me to go into more detail. So it's an example of how it's set up. So each respondent has 30 companies to obviously answer. So from each respondent, they're asked, do you know this company? And for each company known, they ask the question, would you like to work for this company? And then for each company known again, they have to rate why they'd like to work for that company, and the set of drivers on the right-hand side. Do they want to work with that company because they perceive it to being financially healthy? They use the latest technology. Do they have a good reputation? What about job security? They promote career progression, gives back to society, interesting job content, a pleasant work atmosphere, a work-life balance, and attractive salary and benefits. So with this, obviously, the research, like I said, is conducted independently by Kantar as well. Like I said, it is obviously, like I said, an independent, obviously, report, not just conducted by Randstad itself. So how the scores are actually explained, just wanted to just run this through. So say, for example, we were sampling a total of 100 people, and out of 100, 80 of them knew the company. Then the company would score an awareness score of 80%. And then if out of that 80, only 40 thought there was attractive or desired to work for that company, then they would score a relative attractiveness score of 50%. So we're going to talk about awareness and attractiveness all through this. And you're going to find when we get to the top 10, it's going to be quite eye-opening, but it is very highly competitive to get in there. And sometimes it's a quarter of a percentile that separates the top 10 or even the top 20 sometimes as well. So an example of the sample composition of Australia. So as you can see here, it was a 50-50 in gender, obviously male and female. Obviously the age groups there, as I said, the higher 25 to 44%. You see the education, obviously, and the employment status. It was a broad range, although a lot of them were permanent staff that were obviously engaged as well. The Eastern Seaboard has had a heavy presence, obviously, of engagement there. And as you can see, it's very important. And the more detailed report will go into this and break it down for you in demographics, is the generations. And obviously what the key drivers are in each generation as well, because it is quite different, say, for example, from the boomers to millennials, obviously what means for them and what is attractive to them in an employer as well. So, and then we go to obviously the sectors as well. So the sectors are fairly evenly represented as well. There's some look larger than others, but it is sort of that sort of 5 to 10%, which is obviously 2 to 10% of each sector as well. And there is obviously a wide range of functions of actually who were surveyed there as well. So
Matt, I can read out questions from the chat window if you like as well. Nerida's just asked, are these results broken down re the attractiveness of private or public sector organisations? Drivers are different?
Yep, so absolutely. So what we're doing today is learning about public sector. I should have mentioned I do apologise, okay, from there. And then next year, what we can even potentially do is get a separate report for BCC as well, because I know we do separate ones for separate departments. Like I'll put a sample in here we do for the Queensland Department of Education as well, and also Queensland Government as well from there.
I've already put the request in for BCC with Peter Cowan, but I haven't had a conversation with that yet.
No worries. So these results, these ones here, the sample composition encompasses all private and public as well, obviously where we've sampled them from as well. But say, for example, if someone in the private sector was asked about Department of Education in Queensland, if they don't know that company or aware, then obviously move on to a different company from there as well. So it is obviously like this, what I'm talking about now is just generic, but we're going to delve into public sector very, very shortly. So what are Australian employees, what do they want in 2020? And now it's very important, as I mentioned, we have our pre and post-COVID world. So they're going to talk in different slides throughout here, what's what. So as you can see here, I'm going to hide this so you can see. Okay, what Australian employees want in 2020 when choosing an employer and employer. So work-life balance. Number one, 55% want work-life balance. That's the most obviously attractive thing. That's what they want in a brand new employer. Salary and benefits, job security, a pleasant atmosphere, and flexible arrangements. Now, as you can see there, you've got 2019 results between obviously, which are almost identical. Some have gone up, some have gone down, but it's pretty much the same results as last year. And this is obviously in the pre-COVID world. We'll talk about the post-COVID world in the next few slides. But does anyone want to elaborate a bit more to you what you think the difference is between work-life balance and flexible arrangements? Sometimes people get confused with the both. Does anyone want to, before I start picking on somebody? APAC, yes, Pacific, yes. Yep. Anyone have a go?
So, I mean, for me, work-life balance is different to flexible arrangements. I think flexible arrangements more is exactly that in terms of whether you're working part-time, and can work at different times through the day. You can, pick and choose which shifts you're on, that kind of thing. Whereas work-life balance to me perhaps more includes, you know, how then your role impacts on your life outside of work. So, you know, are you getting to be able to go and pick up the kids? Are you going to be able to switch off at the end of the day and not actually have to work throughout the night to get your job done? Those kind of things.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. Spot on, Marisol. Spot on, obviously. Sometimes people get a bit confused. That's why I always ask the question. It absolutely is, you know, and we're going to delve into work-life balance a little bit more and how working from home has affected that as well in the next few slides as well. But any comments about that slide before I move on? It's very important. We will touch on this as we keep going through. We keep coming back to this as well. But any discussion points?
I just noted with interest that the flexible arrangements for the Pacific as a whole is a fair bit under flexible and work-life balance. So Australia seems to value that a little bit more.
Absolutely. And it's
those areas. Yeah.
And because when you think about it, it's a conversation that has evolved in the last 5 years. It really has, the flexible arrangements and work-life balance. I mean, the public sector were the innovators, they were the key drivers, but now you've got all these private sector people jumping on board with it as well and picking up as well. Like we're going to talk about later, like you've got areas now where, you know, you can purchase additional annual leave and things like that as well too. So again, that started off in the public sector, but now it's coming into obviously the private world as well. It's an evolving conversation, and very much obviously to Tammy in your area, D&I, it's an evolving conversation because it's a hot topic as well. So it's something that it's going to feature more and more, I believe, in the coming years as the obviously the working world evolves.
I was going to say, Australia compared to the region for sure is definitely on D&I as well. It's something that's when we talk about the areas that we add value to clients or work with our clients on D&I, definitely for Australia compared to the region, it's much more important here at the moment. So,
absolutely. So it's good segue next slide then, obviously, because this is obviously just the drivers, which we obviously asked the questions about, and this is the trends over the years, obviously. So as you can see, work-life balance there, left-hand side, it's something that's obviously has had a dramatic, and from 2016 to 2017 is when the conversation was rife, obviously, as well, was right out there. So we saw the dramatic increase from there, and it's slowly trending up as well. But down below, flexible arrangements, it's something going up. I mean, who now hasn't had an interview where someone comes in and actually asks about flexible arrangements? Gone are the days where they thought, I'll just come in and do 9 to 5, Mr. Manager, no dramas at all. They actually come in now and they're actually asking, can I start at 7? Can I finish at 3? And, you know, it is a hot topic, obviously, for them too. So, yeah, obviously, and then throughout there, I mean, you've got job security. Now, that's gone down, and just keep in mind, this is pre-COVID. So I would love to see this graph next year, okay, and where that actually is as well, and what actually has changed in employment, obviously too. So there is another slide, and we could touch on both of them. I'll change the next slide very quickly, and we'll have a discussion if you like.
The training one's interesting, Matt, because I remember at Randstad when the demand for training exploded, and that's one of my other roles at Randstad as well. Is I run our trainers network, and it's interesting. I don't know why that would have come off, but it was like. Everyone coming in, all they cared about was getting tons of training, and we have that training now, but I don't know why it's dipping. Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting, obviously. It's an EVP, but if you look at this, the talent trends I was talking about before, number 9 in the talent trends, number 9 talent trends is actually where people are viewing companies now as the new universities, okay, where basically it's upskill, hire today to upskill tomorrow, you know, so and looking at sometimes, you know what, we're going to look past a qualification. I'm going to go for a skill, and we'll upskill from there as well. So it's quite interesting how these two reports actually play hand in hand with it as well. So we go to the next slide here again too, and again, I just want to have a look at this. So a couple of ones I want to point out. Obviously, financially healthy used to be so prevalent. You had these companies who out there would be like, "Oh, come work for us, ASX top 5 company," and everything else. People don't care about that anymore as much. All right, they want to come in. They want to come because if they come into a company now, don't get me wrong, it's still very important. It definitely is, obviously, but it's definitely one of those things where, you know, they're looking more so for a work-life balance. So they think maybe if they're working for a bigger company, are they going to be left alone and not overlooked and everything else as well? So it is obviously something that has trended down. But another graph I wanted here, and this is what I was talking about before, Tammy, for yourself, D&I, look at that coming up. All right, so it's going to come up. It's just gradually grown each year, again, because the conversation has grown and grown and grown. So I think at the end of the day, obviously with that, it's going to be something I believe. And when you think about it, 2016, 2017, you have same-sex marriage being announced. And so then other minority groups are highlighted as well. And then you have people coming in going, okay, companies saying, we have to develop and employ a D&I strategy or a social procurement policy as well. So it is one of the things where a lot more companies are actually going in to do that. So people are enjoying that and feeling safer in the workplace to work for these people with strong D&I strategies too. Tammy, do you want to elaborate on that at all, from where your point of view is on that?
Yeah, I'm seeing. I've been in D&I for many years now, and it's really rising strongly.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the research is making very strong correlations between a company's D&I ability, shall we say, and their financial and economic performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And developing and innovation. So it's so strong it can't be denied anymore, type thing.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It is a slow change management process.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any other comments on these two slides before I move on at all, or not? Or
the only thing I was going to say is, if you go back one, it was in a particular area, is the reason why it may have gone up and then gone down was because a scarcity for it, and then add like training, for example, and like people really didn't have the training, so the demand's going up, and then as the online training and all the training becomes available, it's no longer, it starts going down in terms of an EBP.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just having that conversation in the chat window as well. Now it's an assumed thing that it will be there, and companies really don't stand a chance if they don't have good training. It's assumed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it is more accessible, as you're saying. So if it's more accessible, you don't have to sort of be waiting to get into a course. It's like, well, I can do this online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was saying that the council's EVP is like your graphs that you have there reflects our EVP quite well, actually, in terms of what people are looking for and what we're determining. But instead of job security, we've called it stability, because job security is a thing of the past. Stability is that, as a large government organisation, we will always be here. So it's not an organisation that's going to suddenly disappear.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you bring that point up, Erin, obviously, because we're going to touch on that very shortly as well, about that too, in terms of being and it's quite interesting because, I'd love to see what kind of sectors are going to be attractive. We had a recession announced yesterday, so technically less opportunity in the private sector, whereas obviously government is an essential service. It's obviously frontline, obviously has to be there. So how much more attractive is public sector now going to be for people while we're in a recession? The jobs might not be there, unfortunately, but it's going to be attractive to work for. It might be harder to get in, but it's you hit the nail on the head there. Absolutely, it's through the pandemic, and you'll see one of the sectors that has been most positively impacted by COVID is the public sector and NGOs too. So
it'll be interesting to see after COVID whether people reevaluate their priorities, and so those more lifestyle focused things continue to increase. Because that is people are suddenly coming back to what's important to them, and that may be more important.
100%, 100%. So we move on to top employers. So now, before I click the slide, again, remember this is pre-COVID world, everybody. Okay, so this is done in January. So you're going to find some sectors and some employers in here that would definitely not be there right now. Okay, so in our poll survey, we didn't ask them to rate the employers again, all right, because it was obviously wanted to see more so the impact as well. So, but it's very important to understand the pre-COVID world and why these people were so attractive as well. So the top 10 top employers for to work for in Australia. So have a look through there, and I'll just explain a few there. So you've got Number one, Healthy Care Australia. Does anyone know what Healthy Care is at all in Australia? No, see, I didn't know that either, but they do run, they'll go into a few more details too. They're the largest private hospital operator in Australia. So they actually run like St. Vincent's and a few others as well. And I think, so they'll go into detail what they actually look after as well, so people understand what that is as well. You have Wesfarmers, Bunnings, Kmart, obviously in Coles, so it is quite a well-known brand. And then you have good old Virgin, okay, and you have Qantas. Now, keep in mind, Virgin was done before it went into receivership. So was Qantas, but interestingly enough, look at 2019. Qantas was actually number one. Virgin was number 8. 2018, Virgin was number 1. Qantas was number 2. 2017, I think they swapped again. So they have featured predominantly in the top 10 over the last 5 years. Now, it's quite interesting to think, well, okay, awareness, absolutely, because they're the 2 national carriers. Of course, people are aware of what they are. But what makes them attractive? What do? They have great branding, obviously, to make them an attractive employer to work for as well. And they've implemented strategies, obviously, too, of work-life balances, etc. as well, good security, money, etc. as well. So the other interesting one on here too, you have higher education. Now, I doubt the higher education would be in top 10 as well, okay, after post-COVID. But obviously, ANU and UTS, again, we're a very well-known unis, group of 8, one of the 2 obviously in the group of 8, obviously as well, and actually are quite well-known within obviously the general public too. PwC goes without saying, obviously it's a very attractive employer, and they've sort of featured predominantly in the top 10 in the last 6 years, I think, as well. Competitive Foods Australia is Hungry Jack's and KFC, would you believe? Okay, so retail. FMCG, it's quite interesting subset up there too. Apple, again, an emerging sector with technologies, and George Weston Foods. So that's baking needs. So your flour. They also have Tip Top brands. They also do Don. Is Don is good. The small goods, the ham, and everything else as well. So it's and obviously Qantas from there. So I mean, it's very, very unlikely aviation and higher education would be in the top 10. Okay, but pre-COVID. They were very well known in the market, obviously, and very attractive to work for as well. So does anyone have any comments before I move on with that at all? Oh, Epworth. So yes, Epworth is, again, pharmaceutical healthcare. Yep. In the highest public sector in 2019, so you got Tas Government in there as well. And Tas Government did a really big, good branding strategy with that as well. In terms of they wanted people to come there. So what they thought of was to attract it to their public sector. So then people would bring their families down, and those families would work in the obviously throughout Tas. It was really, really smart actually in terms of to obviously
smells good.
Yeah. So and then in 2020 the public sector, it was federal government. Okay, was the most attractive sector. In 2018, Queensland government themselves have featured in the top 10 since, I think, 2014 to 2018. And 2019 was the first time that they dropped down out of the top 10 as well. So, and we'll dive into, obviously, you'll get to see a graph later on with the different public sectors as well too. So it doesn't feature local government in Queensland just yet, but we are looking to get that report, obviously, as Jolene mentioned before as well. So
just this caveat, not confirmed yet.
Yes. So we'll get it done for, I reckon. Easy.
That's good. You got a lot of pressure now, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell PC to fully know. It's okay. So as I said, May 2020, we actually surveyed 180 employers and 700 employees to actually gauge the impact, obviously, of COVID in their job prospect and their working lives. And we'll dive into this a little bit later. So I just wanted to bring this slide quickly up to explain that before we dive into the other parts here now. So as you can see, this is the top 10 most attractive sectors in 2019, just to have a look at it very quickly. Life sciences, early learning, technologies, education, health and social work activities, public administration, defence, professional scientific, engineering, professional services, and surprisingly, retail. Okay, but remember, this is highly competitive. It can be a quarter of a percentile for someone to jump in there as well. So life sciences, pharmaceutical was obviously a massive increase in last year, obviously, too. And that's with an announcement of, again, an emerging industry, obviously, too, and emerging into Australia as well. So that's why it was a massive jump there. You obviously have your early learning and your education sectors in there, quite interestingly enough as well. But people see those can be as attractive for.
What is compulsory social security was the question there.
Sorry, Jolene?
There's a question in the window. What is compulsory social security?
Compulsory. Sorry, what did you say? Sorry. You asked
Tammy?
what it is.
Number 6. Sorry.
You're going to speak up, Tammy, so you can just jump in.
No.
No, so obviously public administration, compulsory social security. So that's like your social services, and everything else as well too, in obviously the public sector too as well. So you have obviously what's some examples there? You've got people like your Centrelink's, etc. as well, and everything else throughout there too. So yeah, I guess with that, it's one of those things where I'll quickly backtrack very quickly. Just on education and early learning as to why they're in there as well. They were seen so attractive last year. Basically around like the hours of work as well. They seemed attractive to work for. They seemed attractive because obviously it was holidays, school holidays, etc. as well to work in. It was actually quite interesting because they haven't obviously featured in the top 10 prior to 2019, and there was a massive increase last year. And you're going to see in the next slide where 2020, obviously, where they've landed in 2020. And again, to think about how attractive they're going to be in a post-COVID world. So,
and there's a lot of STEM in there too, isn't there? Like lots of science, technology, and it's something that they're pushing to my 5-year-old at kindy.
Yeah.
as you know, that's where all the kids will be working. So it'll be interesting to see what impact COVID's had on the STEM stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, top 10 most attractive sectors in 2020. So number 1, technologies, a big increase by 5% into number 1. And again, that's obviously emerging. It's the world we're living in, obviously, now as well. And I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, next year if that is not number 1 again next year, with a further increase as well. Just obviously this happened through COVID. Medical technology, 53% unchanged, obviously, in there as well from last year, but it's moved to number 2 there. And then you've got OSH, higher education, early learning. Now, it's very interesting to see where they're going to land, obviously, out of post-COVID. This is all pre-COVID, as you can see down the bottom down there as well. You have life sciences, number 6. It's a decrease of 4%, but you're going to see very shortly how that's actually been impacted, obviously, from COVID. Public sector, professional services, FMCG, and health and human social work as well. So moving on to the next, I guess, part of this is our prediction from our pulse survey, what sectors are going to be deemed to be most positively impacted. And this is what we were talking about before, obviously. So number 1, IT and technology. And you look at that, I mean, who hasn't had to go through and even purchase new phones, purchase obviously new technology, new systems to talk to people. Obviously, you've got split workforces now as well. It's all incorporated in IT and technology too.
And council have purchased some new platforms or made deals for new platforms as well in that time. Like you guys have got video interviewing now and a different learning management system, I think. So yeah.
Absolutely. And we have, obviously it's very similar to us. We had new platforms to do virtual assessment centres and things like that as well. Life sciences, pharmaceutical, absolutely. It's something, and it's going to be quite interesting next year where those pharma and obviously technology, where they sit, obviously in terms of their placings there. Sourcing, logistics, supply chain, manufacturing, and then you have obviously NGOs and government. As I said, government has jumped right up. And it's going to be seen, especially now for the recession on top of a pandemic, it's going to be seen as so much more attractive, like I say, stable, steady, and safe. But it is going to be hard to obviously maybe crack into because the opportunities might not be as few and far between too. People might not be looking to leave. They want a bit more security in their role as well from there. Then we have obviously what Australians are wanting from the research. Obviously, when choosing employers, this is what we discussed before: the work-life balance, the salary benefits, job security, the work environment, the flexible arrangements. But this is what they perceive to what their employers are focusing on. So they believe the employees believe the employers are more focused on financial health, the latest technology, job security, career progression, and a good reputation. So they believe that's what they're doing in their branding, not promoting. And again, when you go back to here, when you think about it, okay, like you've got work-life balance, obviously, work environment, flexible arrangement, or non-monetary benefit, obviously, to what they're after. Okay, people want obviously that in their life as well. Where over here they're thinking financial health, less technology, obviously job security, obviously the good reputation and career progression. Good reputation, don't get me wrong, is definitely important for them. And in the whole top 10, I think it's number 7 of what employers want. But it's one of those things employees want. It's one of those things where I think sometimes people do, talk a bit more about how good their company is, and it is important to do that, but good reputation ties into having a good work-life balance, ties into having flexible arrangement, ties into good salary and benefits. So a lot of them are intertwining, as you can see as well. So then you see the gaps here as well. So you can see the blue is obviously what employers seek to what they actually perceive the employers offer. So work-life balance, number 1 for employees, but they think really employers, it's only 8th on what the employers actually offer. So while they might do it, they don't, and I'm going to start saying to a lot of people doing these presentations, just remember, saying is different to doing. Saying we have work-life balance, we have the best culture and everything else as well too, is different to actually doing as well. And this is obviously what people are grading these scores off, what their family and friends have actually said as well. And last slide is talking about how interviews are a two-way street. Their perceptions on that of the company and everything else as well too, what they have to offer and what they're going to hear, what they hear as well. So it's all about that brand awareness. And the salary and benefits, as you can see there, and work environments. There is a bit of disparity there and a bit of work, obviously, if this is what people want to have a look at and go, well, maybe we need to have a reshape of the wording or what we're doing or how we actually are coming across to people as well throughout here. This is the first year we've separated and really dived into what, because we said salary and benefits is important, but really what benefits they're actually looking for as well. Now you'll see in the yellow writing just there, is basically what they're after, and the red writing is what's attractive or what they've actually received, what they believe they actually receive as well. So flexible working hours, 82 want it, 59 believe they get it. Additional AL and sabbatical, this is a big one too. So council offer that, do they offer additional AL to purchase the AL, do they not? Or no, not at this stage, no. Sabbatical or no?
Yeah, we can get like career breaks.
Yeah, of course. Different wording for it, yeah.
And we can purchase leave as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Big tick for BCC, so that's okay. So, and then we have obviously work from home. 71 say they want it, but 37% reckon they actually received it or actually, it was attractive. Now, I know an example for that with my team. Before COVID, I used to tell my team, work from home, guys, work from home, it's fine. And they used to say to me, Matt, I don't like working from home. I don't feel like I'll be productive or anything else either. And then they didn't see me doing it either. And they said, well, why would I work from home if I don't see you doing it, Matt? I'm like, okay, so I had to start leading the charge and working, a day from home, a fortnight and everything else as well too. But it is one of those things where whilst we do offer it, sometimes I acknowledge there's not the uptake of it because of X, Y, Z, but now they realise they can, because they've had to do it, they can do it as well. Healthcare actually comes down to, it's not like private health insurance or, sorry, Marisol, you're going to ask a question? Sorry?
It also comes back to, that perception where I think, in some areas and in large organisations, it depends on what sort of, while we say, yes, we do it, it's whether it's acceptable in that particular workplace, And different occupations also have different ideas around that. Like, some areas you're seen as productive if you're sitting working at your desk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fully acknowledge that, you as an organisation, that's your policy. But then if you take it down to a hiring manager who doesn't support it,
Right.
Then they turn around and go, it's not the hiring manager, it's BCC. That's why I can't do it. So it's an education piece, but that's part of the branding, but too for the internal, obviously, people as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then you've got healthcare. Now that's obviously more personal health and safety as well too. So 66% obviously would like to be attractive, obviously, and then obviously 80% only believe that there was receiving it as well from there. And then obviously training and education. sorry, I see a few things coming up.
It's
Joel,
okay, they're not questions, they're just
okay,
comments,
sorry.
but I think they're good comments that we might read out. So perception is culture from Rona. Visible role modelling by leaders is the only way for policy to be reflected in the actual culture.
Yep.
And I think we went down that path as well a long time ago. We've come a long way with flexibility at Randstad too. We had the policy come out from HR well before we had the practices with the hiring managers.
Absolutely. And then we have training education, obviously, as well. So again, 66% is attractive, but 43% are saying they're actually receiving it as well. So a good training piece as well. And that can be anything. That's not qualifications, that's soft skills as well. That really is. It's not just obviously you're sitting down doing a course or anything else too. So it's ongoing. And Jolene can probably attest to that. Obviously, he's running the trainers network as well. So yeah, I'm very conscious of the time, guys. It's 15 minutes, so I'm so sorry. I'll try and get through as quick as I can for you. All right. All right. Most attractive benefits by profile. So 18 to 24, travel insurance is a benefit they want. Company shares for 24 to 35. Working from home, 35 to 54. Why do you think that age group has got such a large 70% of that age group thinks the benefit they want? Any queries? What do you think that might be?
I think it's lifestyle of that age. Whether you've got families and what have you, where it works better for them. In terms of travel also probably comes into it. Where are you traveling from to get to work? Things like that.
Yep, absolutely. And then you've also got the 55 to 70-year-olds, obviously flexible working hours. They're winding down. They want to retire, so they want to start maybe taking a few different times, etc. as well too. So absolutely.
I think the 35 to 54 as well, they know their a lot of the time if they're established in their careers, they don't need as much support. So whereas my husband's actually got a new hire at the moment who fits the other category and has really suffered from, starting a new role and not being around people that you can hear and just be around learning from at the same time as you're learning a new job.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what do Australians want when choosing an employer? The post-COVID-19 findings. This is from the Pulse survey. Work-life balance remains unchanged, but I'm going to dive into a stat next slide about that as well. Number 2, new entrant, company culture. Does anyone want to have a bit of a stab as to why they think number 2, what company culture is now more of an EVP for them, obviously post-COVID? Anyone? That one?
I think that one again, when you look about what has happened after COVID is, does my work area care? What, is this about supporting each other? Are you giving me the tools I need to still do my job? And, what's the culture like, in terms of flexible arrangements, all of those things that we've had to deal with since sort of March. I can totally understand that one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so true. And you've got also, just remember, you've got a lot of split teams too. Half working home, half here. Sometimes might create us and them. You've got Victoria from us. Our whole Victoria state office is in lockdown and we're up here, going for team drinks after work, etc. as well. So it is one of the things to make sure it's obviously an inclusive culture all the way through. And, it ties into purposeful work, which is number 5 as well. People want to be purposeful work because they want to see it as they are essential. People have gone through, if you turn around and you thought retail now, they're probably thinking they might love their job, but it's not that purposeful. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't go in and buy a new dress tomorrow, but it does matter if you can go in and pay your electricity bill or do something else as well. So it is a bit different in terms of, where they're obviously, like I said, how it intertwines there too. And career progression's one too. That one there, you look at that and you think, okay, people think if I progress up the ladder, is my job safer too? So it ties into job security as well, job stability as well from there. But also now's the time, they've had time to be at home, obviously, and think about what do I actually want to do on my job? I want to do something better as well. So now it's becoming more, I do want to progress as well, because I've had time to stop and think as well from there.
Couple of comments from Nerida that tie into that. She said people want fit and contribute to agendas or outcomes they care about. Especially, I think the spotlight's on that now because you're not, like you said, Matt, when you were working at home, you didn't have all of the energy coming from all the people that you usually get. So it's all about the work you're doing. And she also said leadership leads culture. So quality of leadership is also incredibly important.
Yeah, and that's so true. I'll give you a quick example of myself and my team when we were working from home. We used to have through COVID, 3 check-ins a day. Now those check-ins weren't checking in to see what you work, have you done your work? It was just a morning, lunch, and afternoon, and we would just come in, and we'd just obviously do our stand-up in the morning, but it'd be more so just the lunchtime ones. We'd sometimes just sit there and have lunch together or whatever else virtually, and the afternoon same thing, and also we'd have Friday afternoon have virtual drinks. It was one of those things. I felt so important. We have to remain engaged. We had various people who had been experienced in the team to someone who had been there for 3 months. You know what I mean? So it was so important. And where the guy in 3 months had actually worked from home longer than he had actually worked in the office. So we wanted to make sure we kept that engaged. So we had to make sure we led them through that. So good point, obviously, through there too. So obviously, the further shifts in employee perception and needs. So health and safety. So 76% now want an employer who puts their personal health and safety first, which is absolutely understandable through a global pandemic, without a doubt. Do you allow your employees to say, you know what, we're going to incorporate the flexible working arrangements so you don't have to travel in peak hour in public transport? Do we provide you a chance to have, if you don't feel safe, obviously work from home? That's our obviously through Randstad. If you don't feel safe, even though we're about 50-50, you can still work from home. There's no dramas whatsoever as well. Productivity, 40% agree they spent less time commuting and more time working. So that's the stat I was going to talk to you about. It's quite interesting. They spend more time working. So how then does it become more relevant for them? They want work-life balance because they think they're not getting it because they're working more themselves. Because it is one of the things that does play within the two as well. So it's a double-edged sword there, really. And then obviously you've got resilience. So 90% of Aussies agreed they adjusted to work in the new arrangements. And here's one, this is quite interesting too. 57% of working Aussies are currently open to or looking for another job post-COVID. And that's obviously through various, different sectors as well. But it is, look at all these people who are on JobKeeper right now. And you can't tell me they're not all looking for, seriously considering a career change, obviously, to make themselves, again, essential, purposeful, and have a bit more security as well. And then we're just going to go a few key findings. So I won't go through all of these because I'm very conscious of the time. But if you look at all these infographics here, all right, and the different things it goes into, if you look, there's some keywords, 2 keywords in both these 3 here, which is job security, or job stability, obviously. So, it is one of those things where it's going to be a big driver next year. I truly believe in 2021, when the research comes out, is to, is it going to be more looking for more permanent employment? Are they going to be looking for, and again, permanent employment doesn't pandemic proof yourself either. Look at Qantas, 2,000 people that has let go last week or something as well, and they were all permanent employees. So it is one of the things where I truly believe, from what Nerida's point before, it's a very good point, Nerida. I'm going to take that if you don't mind. Is that job security? It should be job stability. Absolutely, because it's not really no job can be truly 100% secure, really, especially during something like this has happened as well. Then we go to the employers. This is a big one too. So 41% of employers have upgraded their technology in response to the pandemic, and the majority of people have. Obviously, you've got 57% of employers introduced measures to protect employees from unemployment. Which is amazing if they can and they're in the financial state to do so. 63% have implemented split team arrangements, so it's the new way of work, as we said, and even Randstad, that's a new way of work for us as well. 88% of employees are investing in ensuring health and safety of employees, so they're going through their strategies and they're going to make sure that they want people to feel safe so they can come to work. And obviously 85% of employers are split on remote working arrangements being open to all post-pandemic. So, it is one of those things, it's a hot topic and it's going to evolve over the time. And from what now is not in 6 months' time, it's continuing. Before it even started in March, it's evolved so much in that time too. So, again, so a few key stats here. That's what we sort of went over before. So I'm just going to skip this next one to the next slide, guys, because we covered that and I'm conscious of the time. This is the one here I wanted us to talk about, some new ways of working. So, work-life balance and the workday design, obviously, and this is the big thing I think you guys, as obviously human capital leaders in your business, probably struggle with, obviously, too, is trying to help your line managers and obviously your leaders in the business to understand what work does need to be done physically, transactional, strategic, home versus office, what can be done at home now, what can be done in the office as well. what's essential, what's not essential. You know, I said this the other day to someone, like even I read on the Financial Review a couple months ago that they truly believe that the aviation industry is going to struggle regardless after this, because people have learned to have meetings virtually. They're not going to have to jump on a plane and go to Canberra for a meeting anymore. They'll do it like this now. It's going to save money, just as effective as well. You know, this is a big one for you guys and all your hiring managers throughout, obviously, BCC. Are your leaders prepared and adapt to working new ways? Obviously, so that's not just your C-suite. That's your hiring, all your different hiring managers. And I can guarantee you that's probably the biggest challenge through BCC. And you know, I probably don't envy your task in that, but I also applaud you obviously too, because it would be a very difficult task. I don't know if someone wants to quickly comment on that at all, if they've struggled with that with managers with new ways of working or not, or no talking out of school, of course. But yeah, anyone want to comment about that at all? True.
For our team, I must admit, it's sort of really been embraced, and I think there's actually been a real silver lining and a real positive come out of it, because everybody really has jumped on board. But it comes back to sort of Nerida's point and Rona's point around the leadership. Like that's really come down through our leaders as well. So, you know, it really does stem from there, I think.
Yeah, excellent. And then obviously the last point there, is there enough support in the area of mental well-being? Now, I'll ask that, it's a rhetorical question, but I'll just give you a quick stat here. I got our internal HR to run some stats for me the other day on our EAP program since March. And it really is really eye-opening and sort of almost to the point upset me a little bit seeing this. I've had an 88% increase in the use of the service since the start of March, like 88%. It's huge. And then it talks to the topics why people are actually calling the service as well. And it really, really was an eye-opener for me as well too, and to make sure I'm checking my team. And like I'm talking, there's domestic violence on there. There's, you know, a lot of anxiety, stress, medical problems. Financial health was down the list. I thought that would have been top. So, you know, it's something to have a think about. And obviously, you know, and I'm sure council have very good policies around this as well. But it's just something to really, you know, I guess, telling your leaders and then telling your hiring managers, even just do the check-in, like, how are you doing? You're actually okay as well. Like, yeah. And obviously, culture is key. So 68% of leaders surveyed said they plan to develop company culture post-COVID-19 as well. They're going to have to change. What culture once was is not what culture obviously is going to be, I believe. Like it says, your compass is made up of your core values, and your core values can still remain the same, but some may have to shift a little bit. And like I said, like, you know, in terms of understanding what you know, obviously BCC's core values are, but your team and your individuals too, is what I'm saying here too. Okay, I'm very conscious of time. Do you have any data on the topic of mental health for your contract? Rona, I can get that for you. Yeah, I can definitely get that for you.
Thank you.
I've got straight off the call, Rona, I can share you some quick graphs as well, just with some things, but I can go into some more detail for you with that, absolutely. Okay, sector highlights, and I'm very conscious of 4 minutes left, so I'll be very, very quick. So, top performing sectors in Australia. So as you can see here, obviously in the top right-hand side, obviously the sectors that are obviously highly attractive and people are very aware of them as well. So as you can see there, the public sector, as I said, is definitely up there. People are aware and people are attracted. It's quite attractive. But again, post-COVID, I believe it's going to be so much more attractive, and again, post-recession as well. The ones on the bottom left-hand side there, okay, as probably the sectors that aren't as I guess attractive anymore or aware. When you think about it, mining and quarrying is in there. Okay, when you think about the mining boom, that was actually up in the top right-hand quadrant. But now, when you think about what people are wanting, do you get work-life balance doing FIFO? No, not really. Okay, all right, you're away from your family, you don't get flexible, you're working long hours, you might get a good salary and stuff, so that's why it's maybe not as attractive anymore, and there aren't as many, obviously, mining jobs going as there once was too. So I'll share this report with you so you can go into more detail and you click through it, but I just want to keep going, sorry, if that's okay. So government sector highlights. So from the survey, 47% attractiveness and 54% awareness. The seventh most attractive sector, as we mentioned before. And the sector's top EVP drivers, financial health. People see it, yep, they're financially healthy. Absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. You know, it's essential service that they're going. I think from what Tammy or Marisol was saying before, it's not going to be not going to dissolve anytime soon. Job security, people believe once you're in, you can get there again. And then obviously your career progression. The public sector are the leaders in that, without a doubt. They're the ones who will let you get act up, secondments, everything else. They are the leaders, and it's obviously seen. So I'm not surprised. And they were the top 3 EVP drivers in 2019 as well for the public sector. That's just obviously how Queensland government rates among the different public sectors as well. So as you can see, it's actually quite attractive, and people are quite aware of it. Not as attractive as federal government. Interestingly enough, Queensland government pay more than the federal government does. All right. So in terms of salary benefits, I actually have trouble getting people to go between the two sometimes. New South Wales government, Queensland's ahead of that. People are more aware of New South Wales government, but again, it comes down to, we're an election year this year, aren't we? We've gone through COVID. We just won the grand final, the AFL grand final. I mean, people are going to be more aware of Queensland government potentially as well, with border closures as well. So people want to be more aware of it, and it potentially may become more attractive, although there is a current staff and recruitment freeze across the entire Queensland state government as well. So how attractive is that actually going to be to work with right now? So again, I'm just going to keep going. Sorry, and if you want me to obviously come back to anything later on, I will. But basically here, guys, is basically the trend, obviously, between the public sector. I've just put Queensland government here as well. Obviously, the public sector and obviously in Queensland itself is trending well above, obviously, the average of companies, okay, and across all sectors as well. So it is seen, obviously, in all their drivers and everything else as well. It's something that they are evolving with, and it's really good to see, because most public sector, like I said, they are the leaders. They're the ones who set the precedents. Obviously, they're going to walk the talk as well. So,
comment from Rona: social conscience is a key motivator for employees. Maybe that's the reason she's saying that that environmental issues and social conscience is the reason for the less attractiveness of the resources sector.
Yeah, absolutely. This is obviously just the EVP scorers, where obviously the drivers here and where obviously the public sector and Queensland government has actually been ranked as well. Okay, and the scores, they get around a 5, as you can see here too. So the top 5, as you can see, so of course financially healthy, as we mentioned before, was there. Career progression and also job security. But as you can see, closely behind is obviously attractive salary and benefits, and also the use of latest technologies as well. No worries, Rona. Thank you very much. I'll touch base after this meeting, okay? No dramas.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again, Jolene.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rona.
Matthew and Jolene, it's Ida. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
No,
Thanks.
my pleasure.
Bye,
Anytime.
Bye.
We've only got about another 5 more minutes too, guys, so I'll be very, very quick for you all. So as you can see there, and the different obviously agencies that have been ranked as number 1, and the rank where Queensland government is overall. So as you can see, Department of Education and Training, they did a really good branding and obviously EVP strategy a couple of years ago, and it's actually paid off, obviously, in the content areas that they're doing, hence why they're up there, okay, as well, in terms of obviously different areas. So it is one of the things where, I mean, look at this Queensland Education Department for reputation. Overall, Queensland government score 3.4, but you've got debt doing close to sort of 3.8, obviously, as well. So people will, view that as more of a favourable one than obviously Queensland government itself. So switches and stayers, okay, this is obviously the people who are looking to switch and stay or intend to leave employment in the next year. Again, this is pre-COVID, everybody, so this is going to be quite interesting to see again. Switches, so obviously Australia, 90% changed their employer last year, the people surveyed. Stayers, 81% stayed in their role. I'm just reading the Australia results here for now. And then obviously intenders, they plan to change employer within the next year is 29%. Now that was pre, but remember post now is about 53%. Okay, someone could even think about that. So as you can see there, the next slide, it's pretty much the same, again, pre-COVID, 23 down to 19%. People a bit more, I guess, stable in their roles. So there's obviously people have worked and they're more attracted to stay where they're at. And then the stayers, obviously 81%, sorry, as well. Okay, it's gone up. So it's a true reflection, obviously, between the two there. And then obviously their most important attributes on the right-hand side here. And it's a true reflection of what we said before in terms of the top 5. They haven't really changed too much at all. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, who's narrated that yourself? Who wrote that? Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind if you take yourself off mute? Can I ask you a question, sorry, as well?
Yeah, sure. No worries.
With the expats obviously coming back over, is there a certain sector or role type that more people are coming back from at all? Are you seeing influx in?
From what I understand, and this is just it's based on no solid data. It's just based on feedback, like informal feedback from that group, but sort of more specialised roles. So sort of more specialist roles in the organisation, people are coming back and applying for. Like at higher levels in the organisation, so more senior roles, they're coming back to, and a lot of them are overqualified but wanting to apply for lower level roles. Number one, just to get back into Australia, and number two, for that work-life balance. So they've gone and, you know, worked really hard in major private sector organisations, global organisations, and now they're bringing their families home, and they want to sort of change their way of life, I guess. So,
and it seems it's probably a lot safer in Australia than somewhere, because Australia's response has been a lot more sensible, I guess, as well too, and more strict than some other countries as well. So it's quite interesting you mentioned that point. We've had a lot of people too, Nerida, who are applying for. You have directors coming back and applying for, who are directors to a AO5 level, APS 5 level. You know, I just want to get back into the workforce as well. So it's quite interesting. It's going all the way down too. So yeah,
there's a few senior roles that we've had that have around 40% of expats applying. So it's significant.
Wow.
And so what implications that has for our local job markets as well, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think any of us realised how many Australians were living overseas until this happened. You hear about all the flights and all the quarantine.
My brother's coming back from New Zealand. I'm not very happy about that.
And then we have our intenders. Okay, and as you can see, between the intenders who go to leave, obviously as well, there's not much difference in what the attributes they want between the people who are the switchers and the stayers. They're almost identical. Okay, so it's, again, it comes down to obviously various reasons as to why people might intend to leave as well. Things like, obviously, there's emotional reasons, financial reasons, etc. as well. And as you can see, this next slide, there's some key stats here. And I'm not going to go into all of them here, but you know, I guess the first one here, 51% of millennials are likely to leave an employer if they receive a higher salary elsewhere. And that's, you know, that's this true reflection, I guess, of the generation as well. Like the millennials, they want it now. They come out of university and they think they're going to have the corner office with glass views of Story Bridge, and
I think that's going to change now from everything we're seeing. So that might not be the expectation going forward.
Well, absolutely. So it is one of those things where they will jump. It's the loyalty is sometimes a dying trait in that generation, unfortunately. I'm sorry if there's any millennials on the call. I'm borderline. I'm 84, so I'm sort of, you know, between the surface and next, so it's okay. But yeah, other than that, it's one of those things. I guess the other one too I want to talk about is the poor relationship with the manager. So Gen X agree the poor relationship with the manager is a serious reason to consider working elsewhere. See, sometimes millennials can look past the manager and, again, want the money, or they can just see you later. Whereas Gen X, Gen Z, they've got more of a relationship with that manager. It's a more of an emotional connection sometimes, an emotional reason as to why they're going to leave. And then the lack of sense of purpose. Okay, 50% obviously, if there's no sense of purpose in their role, they want to leave their role, especially Gen X as well, which we'll discuss in this next slide as well. So this is also the salary one. So nearly 1 to 2 switches get a 1 to 10% increase, pay increase, obviously, when they do switch. So it's great, obviously, to get the extra money, as you can see there, and some have had some substantial increases from the different, percentiles there. But it also begs to differ, obviously, or begs to ask the question, I should say, you know, are they happy with the extra money as well? Have they got the work-life balance? Have they got everything else as well? So this is what they said they've done. I'd love this question to then go in, okay, and the next question is, when you did switch, even though getting an extra salary, were you happy, obviously, with the company? So I've actually submitted that question again. I wanted to get more deep into that sort of, I guess, data as well from there. And then switches versus intenders, emotional reasons. Okay, so we've got, obviously, here, again, I changed my job or plan to do so because of a poor relationship with manager and colleagues. Okay, so obviously switches and intenders. So for the switches he did, they had a poor relation, 42% left, all right, because of that relationship or colleagues. A mismatch between personal and organisational values, again, it's almost mirrored there. But then a lack of sense of purpose, 49 and 49. Now, what I gauge from this and what I've took from this is you have sense of purpose is driven by your manager sometimes as well too in the work that you do. So if you've got a poor relationship with your manager, they're not going to give you that purpose sometimes. And then you're going to think that purpose then doesn't align with your values. So they're all intertwined, I truly believe there as well. So it's one of those areas where, you know, to have a really good look at and sometimes go, okay, if you don't have that sense of purpose because you're not getting the right direction. So sometimes one, I believe, can counteract both. If you fix one, it can counteract both as well. And then we just have the next, obviously, too, is just our reputation, check our employer's reputation. So just here, obviously, you've got where they go to check and see what people are like and see what the companies like to work for. You have, I guess, in terms of reputation now, the information is so out there on the net as well, so people can find it anywhere. And one example I'm going to give you too in terms of reputation-wise, Google. Google are about to launch what we call Google for Jobs. I believe it's a social platform in Crossing. So yeah, say it. It's one of those. I hadn't heard it. Tammy, I hadn't heard about it either, so it's okay. It's the same question. So Google for Jobs. So basically, if I go to this next slide here, okay, when people are looking for new opportunities or checking out, obviously, okay, they're still going to job portals now. So, but what they're normally doing, they'll go to Google. See the increase in Google here? So what Google's done is turn around and said, most people will can go into Google and type in administration officer, local government or something if they wanted to, okay, or Brisbane City Council. And it might take you to your obviously website, but also to Seek as well. So what Google's done is said, you know what, we want on this, we want in the action. So now what they're going to have, okay, is Google for Jobs are going to bring up the jobs from all the job boards and put it up there for you now. But what it's going to have there for you is in each job, it's going to have the salary listed there as a dot point. It's going to have the location, how far it is from the person's home. It's going to have, I think, contract length or permanency, and then the other one that's going to have is all your Google reviews of your organisation. So it's been bad ones, good ones, or anything else. So talk about reputation and branding. It's another tool, obviously, as well. So good, bad, whatever else, and people can name and shame on Google reviews, etc. as well, which is, and unfortunately you get keyboard warriors, and sometimes you get the people who will go and write negative before they write positive. It's just in nature, and one of my biggest bugbears. I hate that people do that, but anyway. So it is one of the things where to have a look at, okay, in terms of, because in the Google for Jobs too, it lists your company website too, so it's going to be one-stop shop for them. Bang, 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 bang. And they can either choose to click in, click out. So it has to sort of grab their attention as well from there. And they are going to obviously have a look at that branding of yourself as well. And then the last slide here, guys, is interviews are a two-way street. So obviously in terms of branding, so I mentioned before, that basically over half the Australians share their experience of the company with their family, 58%, or their friends, 52%, when applying for a role. And this is not just going for the interview, this is applying for the role. And this includes us as well. I applied to Randstad, never heard back, sometimes, or I did this as well. So they would tell that kind of, I guess, or I applied for BCC and they took 4 months to get back to me or something. I'm using that as an example. No one has said that, okay? So, but it's an example there as well. So this is what I challenge people on the call is that, and I don't know if you've done this or not, is that, yes, you might go to the person who gets the job, comes number one in the selection process, and say, how was your experience? And of course, majority of the time, they're going to say, amazing, because I got the job, it was so good. I challenge you to go to number 2 and number 3 and ask them, what was your experience like? All right, and then they'll give you the true, obviously, they might still be a bit positive, but the true experience, or even go to 4 or 5. What Randstad's doing recently, we're about to employ is what we call a nurture bot. And that's going to nurture someone across. So it's artificial intelligence. So when someone applies, all right, so it's going to be, thanks for your application. And then obviously when, before the closing date of the application, it'll send another email saying, hey, just checking you're still keen for this job. No worries. Hope you're still looking good luck with the job hunt. Jobs are closed. When the application's opened, when obviously the interview, so it's going to nurture them right along the process, obviously, to really make sure that they are engaged and their experience is actually there for them as well. It's something that we're looking to roll out hopefully next year, fingers crossed, but it's the beauty about, I guess, artificial intelligence as well. But yeah,
I don't think any organisation can claim that when a human has to make every single one of those contacts and communications, that any of us have ever been 100% at doing that. So I'm not surprised it's come down to a bot.
Yeah. So it's and other people are doing it now as well with bots. Sometimes you don't realise you're talking to a bot. Honestly, you don't. So they're getting that smart, obviously, too. So it is about that experience.
It matters, though, either in some instances. Like,
sorry, I missed the first part. Sorry, Marisol.
I don't think it matters in some instances whether you're talking to a bot or not. I think just that you've been acknowledged.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something has come back to you. There is some contact to say, hey, we know you've started an application for this. Keep going.
Yeah.
You know, just any contact makes them go, oh, they see me. You know, I'm not just a number in a numbers or anything like that.
Even with online ordering these days, the providers that send you like, I've got your order. Oh, thanks for your order. And it's personalised, and then, your order's being packed. And it's like, okay, you know that it's not a person, but you think, well, I'm part of that nurture track.
Yeah, but it still matters, doesn't it? Because you still go, oh, great, I know they've got my order. I know it's in. I'm not going to be waiting to go, do they have it? What's going on? When am I going to get it? Because you've got some information.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so true. It absolutely is so true.
I
tell them
do that with the bots.
Yeah, it's going to be. We can hopefully provide some insight to you how it's going as well when we do roll it out, obviously, because it's something that I think, I truly believe it's going to be great. Like I said, that nurture bot, nurture tracker, obviously too, and to see obviously engage the experience of it. And like I said, I've talking about going to number 2 and 3 since doing this obviously presentation, doing talent trends as well about this. I've actually got my team doing that recently in their application processes. They're going to come 2 and 3 and do a quick. It's only 5-question survey just to see how the process was, and it's actually helped us improve a lot of our process, to be honest. And they've given us honest feedback, and then it's really helped us, I guess, sharpen the saw a little bit. But at the same time, too, to take it gives us that outside-in approach, which is what we need. So, yeah. No worries. Well, I'm done anyway. Okay, all done. So, people, thank you so much. So what I'll do, I'll send you the detailed report. And the detailed report breaks down different sectors too, so you can have a look at that, different ones there as well. And look, if you're talking to anyone, Nerida, as the CHRO, wants to do something more, I'm happy to come. I'd love to come and do a more detailed one for C-suite as well. So if you want to take that idea, please let us know, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about that in detail. But guys, lovely meeting you all. I hope next time we do, it's in person, without a doubt. And look, I hope you stay safe and you got something out of today. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you do have as well.